Okay, so probably the most fun yet the most difficult thing I cover and we cover all year long is not games. It's the NFL draft. Because I've said this many times, you get lied to for a month to 2 months up to it. And so often during the draft, and every few drafts, there's a guy that really falls, precipitously falls. This year it was Shedeur Sanders, it's been Aaron Rodgers, it's been Dan Marino. Every few years somebody falls a lot. And so, but those stories don't come out until like the fall and after the fall, right? And so Albert Breer had a great article on Shedeur Sanders. And one of the things we talked about, this is what I was told on Friday after the herd. A GM told me if he doesn't go by pick 37, 38, he's now a backup. And there's a lot of teams that do not want that circus as a backup. Albert Breer in his article says teams generally want backups to blend in with the furniture. It's why guys like Tebow had trouble finding jobs and why guys like Cam Newton and Jay Cutler struggled at the end of their career to find jobs. That's what we talked about. But there were two other things that came out that I hadn't heard of. These are huge factors. So a lot of times when you go to these combine meetings, teams give you things to challenge you. Teams will have a player's worst plays ready for him, and they'll show him his worst plays and say, hey, why don't you explain them? And Shedeur apparently didn't take to it well. And at one point, one of the few teams that actually was interested in him said, well, what do you make of this really bad play? And Shedeur said, you know, maybe I'm not the guy for you. That's not the answer. Since there were only 3 or 4 teams in the first round that were going to consider it, now that Pittsburgh apparently has a deal with Aaron Rodgers, so take them out. Another moment, what they do during the film and the combine and the meetings is teams will install mistakes intentionally planted in the install, and they want you to catch them. Shedeur didn't, and when a coach called him out, once again, it didn't sit well. It's like, bro, there's not many teams needing quarterbacks, especially since Pittsburgh appears to have a deal with Aaron Rodgers and Tennessee's getting Cam Ward. So you're down to the Giants, who were not interested at all, and Cleveland, who traded out of that 2 spot because clearly they were looking for next year's class like the Rams are. And I heard a lot of this. Well, what about John Elway? His dad didn't want him to play. What about Eli Manning? John Elway is probably, now let's take out the probably. He's the greatest quarterback prospect of all time. I'm old enough to have watched him in college. There was no Elway pre-Elway. He was a first ballot Hall of Famer talent. I mean, you think Andrew Luck was ballyhooed and talked about? Add personality. I mean, Elway could have played for the Yankees. Okay, his football family, the Elway family. So he's not Elway. And oh, by the way, he's not Eli, who was a much better prospect. Go look up his draft review. You can look it up on the internet. Also, Eli's brother, maybe you've heard of him, Peyton, was the MVP of the league in Eli's last year in college. So he's not Eli. When you've got unbelievable skill like Deion Sanders did, you can sandbag interviews. Deion did and bragged about it. Elway could have. Elway's dad can play a role. Eli's family. And Archie Manning wasn't jerky about it. He's just like, I don't want him playing for the Chargers. So I think this comes down to, let's be honest, Dad and Shedeur Sanders had a much higher opinion of themselves than the league did. It happens. It's not the end of the world. Again, I've said this before. Where you land is more important than how high you land. Honestly, if Cam Ward was going to sit behind Matt Stafford for 2 years of the Rams, probably a better place to go than number 1 in Tennessee because you make your money on your second contract. But here's something to really think about, because one of the few teams that was interested, at least going into it in January and February, into the draft evaluation, was the New York Giants. Think about this. The Giants they wanted a quarterback. They offered Tennessee 2 first-round picks to get Cam Ward. Tennessee said no thanks. Then they traded 3 picks for Jackson Dart. So one of the teams that was willing to give up major picks for a quarterback eventually did. And the worst interview Shedeur had was reportedly with that team, the New York Giants. So again, Boomer Esiason also came out yesterday, a popular New York radio host, former NFL MVP quarterback with Cincinnati. He came out and said he was told multiple teams, owners said, we're not doing this entitled nonsense. So I think in hindsight, and this is why the draft is incredibly difficult to cover. You're lied to constantly. I'm not lied to before a Rockets-Warriors game or a Super Bowl or March Madness. Nobody's lying to me. I've been saying this for years. I have 3 or 4 executives I really trust in the NFL and not many others. In fact, my rule has always been I will not ask an executive in the NFL a question about a player if that team needs that player. I could ask a GM like Brett Veach in Kansas City about quarterbacks because he's got one. But I'm not going to ask him about left tackles because he doesn't. And I know he's going to give me an answer that's fuzzy, and I'm putting him in a bad spot. So I think that the truth of the matter is when you start looking at these stories, they're coming out. Now, it's a classic example. There weren't many job openings, and once he became a backup, once he turned off the Giants, nobody wanted. They want to back up, as Albert Breer said, to blend in with the furniture. And he's not a blend in. He's not from a blend in with the furniture family. Yeah. Be legendary before you call yourself that. How about that's a rule going forward for quarterbacks? Just be legendary. You got to be better than 13 and 12 in college. Be legendary before you do a draft room and it's painted all over the draft room. And again, it's not the end of the world. But what do we always say on the show? When you're a quarterback, everything is something. Nothing's everything, but that legendary is something.